What is up, guys? Welcome back to Think Shank. It is fabulous to be back and talk America's team that is naturally the Washington Wizards. I know it's going to be a tough sell. Just give me one chance for the love of God. Even if you don't give a shit about a new potential heartthrob upstart team in the NBA, I do think that there is some potential for some of the pieces on the roster to actually impact your team down the line come the trade deadline. Kind of get some of that Portland Trailblazer-y vibe maybe last year. Thank you so much for watching. It really means all right, screw it. We're going to go ahead and jump in first and foremost with Tre Johnson coming out of Texas. Wizards get him at number 6 in the draft. Side note, yes, the New Orleans Pelicans can be the laughingstock of the NBA for opting to take 2 lottery picks this year and probably not take any next year. Ask the Washington Wizards about your odds at getting a top draft pick by tanking. It doesn't always work out. Well, maybe it kind of did in this specific instance because holy fucking shit, I genuinely think Tre Johnson has the best chance to take Cooper flag down for Rookie of the Year. Maybe grazed the closest by VJ Edgecombe. Quintessential fit for the Sixers, already dealing with availability concerns. Yes, that is a joke. Relax. Tre is already taking a lot of the shape of a very effortless scorer, nasty handles, and a lot of IQ, specifically in isolation settings. Tyrese Maxey's lateral quickness and handle. Obviously, he is extremely explosive, horizontal kind of straight line speed, but this is not quite what I mean. I'm talking about the lateral shiftiness that he has that really loads up into that very quick first step, and that handle kind of bridges a little bit closer to what I feel like is Donovan Mitchell. Getting to those kinds of spots and being able to really take guys one-on-one to get around and really collapse things. The difference is we see a lot of Devin Booker-esque type of turnarounds, sort of high releases. Obviously, again, being 6'5", predominantly coming in playing that shooting guard position. Obviously depends on the opponent, how many perimeter defenders they have, yada yada. The other guy that came to mind for me was when he actually didn't have the ball and the amount of effort he seemed to really have to sprint across the court and expend a lot of energy to help himself early develop some of that momentum, getting himself downhill. Kind of remind me of Malik Monk a little bit. I mean, Malik has this skywalking Jalen Green kind of calf muscle, mutant muscle calf thing. It's not quite in that sense. It's more so this sweeping kind of willingness to come around some of these screens, get himself downhill. And then those kinds of reads, at least for now, seem to be in the repertoire for Tre. That sort of secondary creation, you probably don't want Malik Monk running 80 pick and rolls a game, but he is definitely effective and honestly a little bit better than most people give him credit for. I just kind of sense that. So Maxey's lateral sort of shiftiness, the handle of Mitchell to get around that primary perimeter defender, not that vertical explosiveness in the short mid-range, but more of the turnaround, shooting guard, classic Bradley Beal, Devin Booker type stuff, but also possessing more than enough motor willingness to get himself running all over the court and creating some kind of separation that way, a la Malik Monk. Even before the draft, he was widely recognized as the, quote, best shooter of the draft. And it's even doubly scarier given the fact that he is not even 19 and a half years old yet. And again, this sort of shooting, pretty pristine, but the ability to navigate and sort of that IQ of picking apart whether it's single or any of the help defenders to kind of get away and then continue to score in isolation is really fucking elite already. He was asked after one of the games in Summer League about what sort of instructions, encouragement, what his role kind of was out on the floor from the coaching staff of the Wizards.
None of the coaches, none of the front office care if I score. They just care if I play defense. Like that's all they talk to me about. That's all they really care about. I just got to come out and make sure I'm putting my hat on defensive end. That's the main part I'm worried about. Scoring really come easy to me. I just got to be in the right spots and make the shots. I just got to be a guard and defend.
Do you think you've impressed them thus far with your defense in the first 2 games?
I wouldn't say impressed. I've showed improvement.
The only thing I hear about from them is defense, and man, my heart, my eyes became hearts. Everything about me just glowed. This is the exact approach you need to have with maybe not your cornerstone centerpiece of whatever it is. You have to instill this kind of defense-first mentality, looking at overall league trends. It is non-negotiable to have essentially a top 8-ish defense to just get in the conversation, to start the marathon race, and then from there we can have more of a conversation, more of a chance, kind of giving him the silent treatment on offense. And part of that, as I'll get into, might have to do with the fact that they have no fucking idea how they want to even play offense, given the fact that Kuzma, Poole, whatever, Valanciunas are gone. But I'm talking counting stats and efficiency stats, and for a team like this where they're at, probably also impact stats, I can see him averaging north of 20 points a game in any game that he plays more than 30 minutes. It is just going to be a function of how much the Wizards actually care to win and how many minutes he actually gets in the pursuit of preserving the trade value of the veterans on the roster. Obviously has some learning to do, and we'll see about the defense, but that is how confident I am in this dude's supreme ability to score. Next is Alex Sarr, going number 2 in last year's draft, coming in as their not really lone big man. We'll talk about Vucevic later. We did get some glimpses into the directions he was getting. A couple things stood out to me. Number 1, seemed to get fucking jacked. I think that is pretty straightforward. This guy came into the league as a archetypal, switchable, versatile, but still 7 feet tall big man, showing a lot of very, very sound and effective defensive instincts, but on the offensive end, really struggled, which is in connection to the weight and the muscle, where he would get knocked off balance, really even trip over himself on the short roll, things like that. The biggest way that this new good muscle gain is going to help him and jumped off the screen is on defense. Again, really showed great instincts there, but didn't necessarily possess that strong center of balance, especially in the lower body, to hold his ground effectively. When they were doing that sideline interview thing throughout Summer League, head coach Brian Keefe, when he was asked about him, that was the very first thing that he said. We told him to bulk up. And man, he seemed to take the lesson. I also think Keefe mentioned that Alex spent all summer in DC, like in stateside, just like training. Obviously, Sarr is from France, so I think that is also kind of great. Last year, Alex Sarr averages a block and a half, putting him at the 97th percentile in the entire NBA. Shot 67% from the free throw line, only taking 2.5 free throw attempts a game, 60% at the rim, that is the 33rd percentile, 32% in the overall mid-range, which is the 9th percentile, and then not even 31% from 3, that is the 19th percentile. If you're 7 feet tall and really good at blocking shots, you should be a lot better at finishing at the rim. 60% is like what Cam Whitmore does, and I will get to him later. Basically the same number of field goal attempts at the rim as he did in the mid-range. That is a problem for a center unless you're Nikola Jokic and you're shooting like 80% on these flip shots from like 6 feet out. Once you're able to do that, you can leverage that better balance, body control in your short mid-range positions if they get you in the pocket to be able to do those Cinderella spins, find guys in the corners, and get cleaner looks for your teammates. Bub Carrington, also second-year sophomore. He comes in after last season with stretches of entire games without a single field goal attempt at the rim, barely one free throw attempt on average and extremely streaky from the outside. He had games where he made 7 threes in a game, and then he had games where he went 0 of 7 all over the place. So very streaky. He closes shooting 34%, 49% at the rim, 3rd percentile in the NBA, but 81% from the free throw line. That is a helpful indicator. 4.4 assists to about 1.7 turnovers. So you're looking at about a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which is good. The main takeaways here is that he has to present a ton more rim pressure if he wants to break through this artificial ceiling that he's ultimately going to put himself inside of, unless he is unbelievably good from very deep, if you just become Fred VanVleet or Tyrese Halliburton. The other thing that I thought was really cool was he's not, is he 20? He just turned 20 years old like a week ago, which is pretty bonkers. Feels older and more mature than he really is. He was just mic'd up and telling guys to calm the fuck down on the court. Everybody's running all over the place in transition, and they just showed some cutscenes of what happened right before, and there's Bub like bringing guys in, and it's like, we got too many guards out here. We're all running too fast. Chill out. Let's figure this out. Mixed with some of the body language out there, a lot of communication, especially during free throws, I've noticed. Just like keep your eyes peeled for this. He seems kind of like a real good, steadier kind of player, a little bit older, wiser. One of the key investments that the Wizards are going to make at that point guard position. I do like his size, and again, the shooting does come and go. A huge thing with him, not too dissimilar from Alex Sarr, you gotta present more of a potent downhill and finishing, specifically rooted pressure, and Bub just has a very long way to go. It is Cam fucking Whitmore time, baby. Let's go. I'm so happy that the Rockets did this. I mean, it was for what? A couple second-round picks like Sacramento and Chicago maybe, which are low-key kind of fucking good, but at the same time,
You can pull that off every now and then. Jumbotron.
Just
if
one.
possible. You know, why don't you both try to do radio?
On the bounce to Tate. Oh my goodness. Detroit was up 15, lob.
this almost felt like a goodwill trade to me, which is really a good-ass sign on Houston's behalf. Hipster fan favorites, where he would just come in for 15 minutes and have like 18 points, and you're like, holy fucking shit, is anybody going to be able to stop this guy? It was his sophomore year, and his minutes actually shrank. He went from 18 down to just 16 minutes a game. Obviously, Houston looking around at, I don't know, Reed fucking Shepard, who went number 3 and barely fucking played whatsoever last year. Kind of bitched about this a lot in my Houston video that I did my preview on them for. 21 points per 75 possessions, but on nearly 18 field goal attempts. So that's 21 points on 18 shots. He finishes 36% on threes, but only finishes 60% at the rim. Mentioned that with Alex Sarr. 33rd percentile across the league, 40% from the mid-range, 32nd percentile, and then, yeah, like 36% from 3 at about 3.5 attempts per game, 74% from the free throw line. Basically, no blocks, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1-to-1 ratio, barely half of a steal. Negative estimated plus minus, one of the best kind of catch-all overall impact metrics. None of them are perfect, but comes in at minus 0.5, which I do want to use as a jumping off point because of a lot of points being potentially misleading about someone's actual impact on winning. There are 2 main ways that he provides, air quote, unique advantages and benefit for a potential team. Number 1 is pace. Looking at PPB stats, I mean, that was one of the biggest categories that the Rockets were just better with him, as well as second chance possessions, points, and efficiency. Those are kind of interrelated things in my opinion. When you think of Cam Whitmore, or at least me, I think of a lot of transition play.
The second unit. And then gets turned over. The Cavs down, and Whitmore.
Banton.
Here comes a man. Thompson throws the lob.
Looking at half court as well as transition rim finishing, only nets out around 60%. It feels like in transition especially, he is quite a bit more effective. Even when he doesn't finish, it is creating sound second chance point opportunities that obviously Houston is an enormous fan of. And then number 2 is physicality. So you have around 2 free throw attempts per 16 minutes per game. Dunks and threes has his expected free throw attempts to go up to about 4.5, when obviously that takes into consideration more minutes as well. I'm just kind of doing an eye test thing. And again, you think about transition, a lot of rim pressure. It kind of is reminiscent to me of Terrence Shannon Jr. over with Minnesota. Fucking freight train coming down at the rim. He is really trying to drive his huge fucking shoulders into your chest. And a lot of times if you're caught off balance or if you're smaller than he is, you're just gonna get caught getting him to the free throw line. The thing about Cam Whitmore that I didn't really recognize until I looked it up and then kind of looked back on is he's 6'7", which is pretty big, obviously. But it's kind of like the Dante DiVincenzo is 6'5", but plays smaller. Cam Whitmore, yes, the physicality piece about it, but he seems like he has so much skill, particularly with his creative finishing, that, again, it's not like he is just bulldozing into you, kind of like your Terrence Shannon. He seems to be quite a bit more adept and maybe more honed in that realm. And so if you decide to lean into that kind of pace and space sort of model that a lot of teams without a very solidified offensive identity, at least in the half court, tend to lean into, I do just think this guy is just going to be pretty effective in that role. A couple other things I found interesting. He took 77%, so more than 3/4 of his threes from above the break, not really taking a lot of corner threes, which is pretty interesting. Pretty ball dominant guy in his role over with Houston, so he would be flanking more of the wings than waiting in the corners. Only about 60% of his rim field goal attempts were assisted, 26th percentile in the league. That's a lot of self-generated rim field goal attempts. I just found that to be kind of interesting. Same thing with mid-range. He was in the 11th percentile, 6 rim attempts and 8 3-point attempts. I do like the seesawing there. Taking a step back, kind of overall, I just think Cam Whitmore, like most people, has been a clear ball of potential that has unfortunately just been on a team with just too many guys, where he was able to drive the most amount of value primarily in 2 ways: pace and physicality. They are kind of interrelated. A lot of Cam Whitmore that we've seen, at least insofar as him at his best, has been in transition, which again was absolutely essential for the Houston Rockets offense. So I will be interested to see where we can see him sort of find himself in half-court possessions without the perimeter stoppers that can pretty easily convert stops or turnovers into transition opportunities, right? We don't know what their identity is going to be in the half court, and we do know that they just don't have the perimeter defenders that Houston did. It's just going to be really interesting to see where he finds himself. And obviously all of that goes under the guise of just more than 16 fucking minutes. Quick hitters, because I've been talking for way too long. Keyshawn George can really play defense. Kind of assumed that George had always shown. Turns out, not really. I guess he really didn't show a lot of this defensive potency for a while, but to close last year and then obviously at Summer League too, I mean, the dude's a fucking animal. Huge energy ball, Energizer Bunny type of guy. Seemed really solid on ball. Comments that Brian Keefe on the courtside interviews was making just sounded like everything he was interested in talking about with Keyshawn, as far as, yeah, shots are going to come and go, whatever. We felt pretty confident that he could be an absolutely positive defensive guy for us, and it seemed like he has really bought into that. Plus 0.4 defensive estimated plus minus according to Dunks and Threes. That is obviously pretty good, 72nd percentile, but that offense is always going to be the issue. I kind of get Anthony Black vibes a little bit from Orlando. I mean, he comes in, ends up with 32% on threes on 27 minutes a game, which is basically what Alex Sarr averaged, so that's quite a bit, netting out at about 12-ish points a game and taking 7 threes to just 2.5 rim field goal attempts. You're taking a ton of threes, you're only ending up with, 32%. It's pretty straightforward how that needs to improve, but just overall, defense is always important, and that is kind of just like the new three-point shooting. That's just really the only way that you're going to get allowed to even step foot on the court. Also, AJ Johnson, very dynamic, a ton of improvisation and feel. I know that there's some people who think that he should be an on-ball guy or kind of lead some of those secondary units. My sense is he is more comfortable improvising and capitalizing on half advantages, some advantages that others can make for him, whether transition or otherwise. About equal rim and 3-point field goal attempts. Love to see that. 87% on free throws, but only 28% from three. I don't know. That is kind of nuts. It's great to have improvisation, feel, be very dynamic, especially in the open floor. End of the day, you got to make shots. 87% from the stripe. Kind of endearing. Also want to mention Jameer Watkins, only because Summer League really opened my eyes to him. He's a 6'7", kind of 3'4", with a 7-foot wingspan. Just kind of fits this whole Washington wing archetype stockpile thing that apparently Keefe and Dawkins just really believe in.
I think it's, the rim protection. It isn't all. I feel like he's active.
Former top 5 high school recruit in his class. Went to Kentucky. An open 3 or a layup or something. Maybe some free throws. And we'll have a profile on Edgecombe coming up at halftime. Richmond with the well-timed steps against the chase with 3 seconds. Watkins steals the inbounds with 1 for their first win of Vegas Summer League. Mince's pokes. Active hands offensively from Leaky Black.
Some of the best defensive flashes of anybody, but holy shit are his offensive warts mortifying. Summer League averaging 3.5 steals and 1 block, so 4.5 stocks, but offensively 26% on all field goal attempts and just 14% from 3. That is 3 of 21 overall in Summer League from 3. Yeah. Fuck, dude. I don't know. You're going to have to really eat on offensive rebounding and transition. Granted, if you're that fucking incredible on defense, that at least gives you a chance. But Jesus Christ, dude. I mean, 26% from the floor. The other thing I want to mention here is the Brian Keefe backstory. I don't think anybody could even tell you the name of this coach, frankly, of all NBA coaches. I mean, even Utah, everybody kind of knows Will Hardy. Brian Keefe is the head coach, and this is kind of interesting to me. He has a reputation rooted not even in offense or defense, it's in development, and let me tell you what I mean. He was the performance lead for Oklahoma City when they had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. All 3 of those guys played together for OKC, and all 3 became MVPs, by the way. Also took on the defensive coordinator position simultaneously with performance lead. That is the development leader for Oklahoma City. Went over to the New York Knicks, then went to the Los Angeles Lakers, and that was spanning Kristaps Porzingis, Brandon Ingram, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those are the 3 guys that will jump out along the way, again, as the performance leader for those teams. So I'm not saying that he's going to make Tre Johnson into some kind of a Bradley Beal SGA hybrid, but I can at least see why Brian Keefe probably lobbied quite a bit for drafting him as essentially a better version of Bradley Beal with a Donovan Mitchell handle and seemingly a lot deadlier of a all-around sort of package when it comes to isolation IQ. We all know what Devin Booker, Bradley Beal kind of look like when they're forced in isolation versus a Donovan Mitchell, for example. Yeah, interesting to me thinking about development, Brandon Ingram, SGA specifically. He also took the Lakers from the 30th ranked defense to the 12th as defensive coordinator in his very first year. Thought that was kind of insane. And then the punchline in all of this is, well, then build this motherfucking defense, dog. It is time to stop sucking. And so now we have Alex Sarr, who weighs more than I do, and we also have Keyshawn George, coming into form, apparently, with some of the defensive chops that apparently everybody knew about except for me. Jameer Watkins coming on in off of the bench. Cam Whitmore coming in from a very, very militaristic, authoritarian Ime Udoka system with the broader trend of the NBA. Like I always say, you will not even get to start the race if you're not looking at a top 10, 8-ish defensive rating. With this guy's track record defensively with all of these teams, I do think that that is a promising as hell look. And then singularly looking at Tre Johnson, I mean, this just kind of feels like the wing guard combo archetype that he has just apparently led a lot of the early development for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Brandon Ingram and James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. Like, these are scoring perimeter guys, so I like that fit a lot. The key questions facing the Wizards going into next year, and it's a pretty intuitive one for a lot of upstart teams. It's going to be a tug of war. Development versus sustaining, trade value for vets versus flourishing for your prize talent. Let's start with trade value. Chris Middleton, CJ McCollum, your two vets, 33, 34 years old. They are both unrestricted free agents after next season. It leads me to believe that they are more than likely going to get moved at the trade deadline. If they don't, I mean, the Czars can just let them walk for nothing, but that would be kind of stupid, but kind of on brand. I would anticipate more minutes than anybody probably wants to see of either of them playing on this upstart team with some shinier toys on the bench earlier on pre-deadline as is. But it has to be symbiotic with the development side. How do we want to play? 3 of the top 5 players last year in usage that were on the roster are now gone. Jordan Poole went to New Orleans. Kyle Kuzma went to Milwaukee. Malcolm Brogdon is not playing anymore. Jonas Valanciunas, tried to run away to Greece. Sorry, buddy. I guess you got to go basically, get to the fucking finals with Nikola Jokic. Bummer. You basically just have a big-ass vacuum for usage and deciding, who you want to be handling the ball, how you want them to be handling the ball, what sorts of actions you want to play. Bob Carrington is going to get the nod at the point guard position. He probably showed the best and most sort of steadiness, even though on the offensive end, scoring-wise, very, very inconsistent. He does seem the most capable, most in control. Bilal Coulibaly, to me, is inching closer and closer to the OG Anunoby mold. I do have to watch him play more, though. This could be a Mikal Bridges type of, he was in Phoenix, contended, and then went to Brooklyn and balled out type of deal. Able to spread his wings a little bit more. Maybe we get to see him blossom as well. Alex Sarr as well. Already talked about it. Do we trust him with, some of the playmaking in space? How strong has he really gotten in the post? Any sort of positioning there? And then, in my opinion, most importantly, is Tre Johnson. My pretty confident prediction is that in games that Tre Johnson ends up playing 30 or more minutes, I think he's going to average 20 or more points because he is just that gifted as an effortless and all-around pristine scorer in this league. Scoring just comes easy to him, and all the coaches even talk to him about his defense. That, of course, is going to bring that sort of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander ceiling-raising ability for guys like him. If you're able to score as well as, I'm not saying you can yet, but if you have the potential to score as efficiently and effectively as guys like Shai Gilgeous, you just better push on that defense, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a supermax. I guess my own sort of thoughts on that overall, I don't think Chris Middleton or CJ McCollum could be gone early enough, soon enough. I actually get annoyed that they are even on the team, and the Czars will be forced to even give them minutes in the first place. Get the Carrington, Tre Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, and then insert whoever else you want into that 3-2 whatever, Keyshawn, Champagny, like whatever. These pieces are just really, really fun. I just have a hard time not seeing some kind of Portland Trailblazers reenactment from, the last quarter of the season last year, where they had the 6th best defense in the NBA. get all this momentum, make a nuts gnarly pick with the 16th pick in the draft. They get Drew Holiday, and they, just make that really strong claim in the sand about defense being their thing. But they just have a lot of optimism surrounding them. I can really see that happening for this year's Wizards, especially after letting go of the rocket boosters or the life rafts of Middleton and CJ and just letting these guys kind of just be free a little bit. But ultimately, they got to figure out how they want to play, how much they want to let Tre Johnson specifically flourish. It will be very interesting. The other thing worth mentioning is that the front court depth is petrifying. I don't actually know much at all about Vucevic. I'm just gonna call it Vucevic. I know Vucevic is over in Chicago right now, but this guy's name, it looks so similar. First percentile in defensive estimated plus minus. That is as bad on defense as you can possibly get. And somehow this guy ends up with 35 games played and 15 minutes played per game. Does finish with 37% from three. He is a 7-footer, and this is just par for the course for the Zards, just wanting to do 5 out and wings and versatility always. But you are going to be left with this seemingly pretty massive defensive liability. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Quinton Post. I don't know, though. I do need to watch more of his game, I will be honest. I know he's from Italy. I know he's really pretty young still. Other than him and Alex Sarr, they literally do not have another center on the roster. I know that they have Marvin Bagley. If they want to dig him out of his casket and tell him to play for 10 minutes a night, all power to ya. But I just think about any degree of a meaningful game that you are trying to make competitive and play seriously, you want to be able to get some kind of solidified rotations out on the floor and take it seriously. If you just have Vucevic kind of coming in for Sarr, who only averaged 27 minutes a game last year, I don't know how you're going to tread water whatsoever. Other thing too, Will Riley's really good. He's really tall, sharpshooter. Not going to say Klay Thompson-esque, but kind of reminds me a little bit of Keegan Murray minus a ton of the defensive potency, but super big frame, 6'8", I think is a super underrated pick and is probably going to end up being an unbelievable shooter. He was lights out at Summer League. It has that same very stoic, calm sort of demeanor to him. I just kind of gravitate towards guys like that, at least that fit those kinds of archetypes and roles as a big, rangy wing shooter kind of guy. We'll see, especially how the defense holds up. Overall, we could just have next year's Portland Trailblazers in our lap. It will be a huge function of how hard they try to A, win, but B, develop some kind of offensive half-court identity, or really offense and defensive identity, at the expense of propping up the trade value of their vets. We're going to be in for the Tre Johnson experience. I'm not going to lie. I think I'm most excited to watch him of literally any rookie in this entire draft class. That is inclusive of Cooper Flagg, who admittedly I've just kind of gotten sick of hearing and watching. Kind of just want to let that kid figure his shit out. I know he's really, really good already, but like apparently he's going to be the fucking point guard for a team that apparently is trying to win the championship this year, and we'll see how that goes. Tre Johnson might just light the fucking league on fire, but is on the most irrelevant team. Yeah, we'll see about Rookie of the Year later on. Hopefully that was somewhat compelling. I really, really like this team, and I can't wait to watch it. Having lived in DC for about 2.5 years prior, love the city, love the team. I'm just a sucker for upstart teams that are terribly mismanaged, as you can tell by my Kings content. Any other thoughts, please let me know. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.